morning. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners. We're having our meeting today at 9 o'clock, and it is June 26, 2018. Call the meeting to order. Let's all rise and say pledge allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, our first thing to do here is to look over our agenda and see if there's anything that needs to be added or changed.
Mr. Chair, there is one addition to the agenda this morning under the Administrative Services. We'll be asking for board approval of a aerial photography contract with Pictometry International Corp.
Okay. So where should we do that one?
We'll do it at the end of the Administrative Services.
Okay, right at the end.
I'll move the agenda.
Second. We have a motion for the agenda as changed. Is there any other changes or discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so our first item of business here is we've got the Child Care Forgivable Loan request. Ms. Heather Lowe of Good Thunder City Clerk. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Morning, Heather.
As you gentlemen know, we are in kind of a crisis for daycare, and I was excited to see the application come across my desk here in May. This is a center-based daycare in Good Thunder. It's the only center-based really in the area, as Mapleton Center-based has closed last year in 2016. I have been keeping kind of in track with Mapleton, seeing what they're going to do with their center-based, and it looks like they're working really hard to get theirs reopened as well. But this is for St. John's Daycare.
Yes, and anybody have any direct questions? You go ahead.
I think the only comment I would make is Heather's been to the mayors and clerks meeting and been reporting on this process and the development that's been coming along. So I think most of us have been at those meetings, so we've heard this and talked about it and seen it. So I don't have any other questions other than that, Mr. Chair.
Anybody else? The only question I have is, Bob more or less answered it. I was concerned when I saw that the majority of the money requested is going just for the furnace.
Yep.
And I was hoping that somebody's done some good due diligence to make sure that's exactly what needs to happen.
Yep, I did see in their business plan that boiler system actually, I think I saw that it was actually condemned. So they do need that boiler system done as soon as possible. There's a separate boiler system for the church, and so that kind of quelled my question too, as far as if it's for the church and the daycare. So I was happy to hear that it's a separate system.
Good, yeah, I was too, and wrote to Bob late last night.
Yeah.
And got that answered, because I thought, well, this is a good way to get in the church a new furnace, but it's not really.
Well, it makes more sense now that I look at the building. Actually, there's separate areas.
I saw that. There's actually about 3 additions onto the back of the church.
But my council approved it last in June, just this June 11th.
Yes.
So I do have a copy of the resolution there.
Wonderful. Yeah, we've got it in our packet
okay,
too.
Good.
And we're happy, I think, as a board and administration and the board itself. Been talking about these child care. I would call it a desert that we have going on almost right now. It's not just here in our county. It's all over Minnesota and all over the country. A lot of issues dealing with child care, which impacts our workforce. And so we're happy to help with this new program that our board is going to roll out.
I would move to approve. Second.
We have a motion to approve this loan request and a second. Is there more discussion or comments?
It's a problem we have. That's just the way it is. The county, we can, and the cities, small cities, can do something at least to help.
Yes.
It's a shortage.
Yes, they're very excited about it too.
I bet. No, that's wonderful. Yeah, I'm glad that it'll help to keep that open.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. So we move on then to our planning and zoning. We've got two items of business, and welcome.
George.
Welcome.
Morning.
Welcome. I guess, so our staff are here and from Environmental Services Department to present some action items. The public will have time to comment after the staff reports. And if you would like to comment, please come to the podium when it's time to address the board. And for the record, I'd like to ask you to limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. We've got limited time at the board, but we want to give you a chance to share things. So, go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. PC 14-18 is a request from Justin Bauer for review and approval of a conditional use permit to transfer the residential development right from the northwest quarter of the southwest quarter to the southwest quarter of the southwest quarter, all located in Section 20 of Luray Township. The property is zoned agricultural. Mrs. Sando presented the staff report. The applicant was present and made no further comment. There was no public comment. The Planning Commission briefly discussed the request and expressed no concern with the proposal. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings prepared by staff, and the board action is a resolution.
Okay. So, we've got the resolution before us. At this time, we will open the public comment portion of the hearing. And if you would like to make a comment regarding PC 14-18, applicant Justin Bauer, please come to the podium and state your name, your address for the record, and keep your comments to under 3 minutes. Is there anyone else here that would like to come on up and share? Go ahead.
Justin Bauer.
And address.
I'm just requesting the transfer of building rights from, like George said, the back quarter to the front quarter on that.
Okay. Anybody have any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I looked at it too. It looked pretty straightforward. We do these quite often. We've even talked about different ways of doing it administratively, and so, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks, Justin. Anybody else who'd like to come to the podium and have any questions or comments about this transference of development rights? I'll ask a third time. Anybody here who would like to make a comment or ask any questions? Please come to the podium. I'll close the public portion then of this PC 14-18 request and bring it back to the board. Are there any comments from the board or any?
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion for approval from Commissioner Stuenberg and a second from Commissioner Brunder. Is there any comments or questions and discussion? We saw it before.
Yep. I said planning zoning was no problem, so.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we got another item of business here. PC 16-18.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Aaron.
PC 16-18 is a request from Fast Sun 14 LLC for review and amendment of a previously approved conditional use permit to operate a large solar energy system. The proposed project will span approximately 8 acres and will have a power capacity of up to 1 megawatt, which by Blue Earth County standards classifies it as a large energy system. The proposed amendments include changing the layout and configuration of the project, changing the access point, and relocating the project approximately 740 feet closer to County State Aid Highway 27. The property is zoned agricultural and is located in the southwest quarter of Section 5, Luray Township. Mr. Stubbs presented the staff report. The applicants were represented. 2 neighboring residents addressed the commission with the following concerns. There was an intrusion on property rights since the applicant had previously installed solar panels on another nearby parcel. That the site of the proposal is accessed by a road which is occasionally closed due to flooding. That during the previous construction project, semis drove across the neighboring property, resulting in noise issues 24 hours, 7 days a week, destruction to property, and interference on TV and AM radio reception. That the new solar panel should be installed to the north in the middle of the field, which was the initial plan while considering its impacts to the county tile system. That contact person of the neighboring solar project indicated that landscaping would be planted along the fence of that project. This landscaping was never installed. that during the construction of the neighboring solar installation, County Road 27 was blocked because the semis were packed on it. There should be proper planning and laws to ensure that neighbors have proper enjoyment of their land. That based on research in Minnesota and in other states, other similar projects have much larger setbacks and also require trees and shrubs around the perimeter. And that access of emergency vehicles and mail delivery may be interrupted due to vehicles which will be parked on the road during the project. The Planning Commission discussed the request and expressed concern for the neighboring property owners. However, they also indicated that if the request meets the criteria established for solar projects, denial of the project could open the county to litigation. The possibility of moving the project further east, providing screening, and maintaining a staging area for off-street parking was discussed. Following the discussion, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to forward to the County Board a recommendation of approval based on the findings and conditions prepared by staff. The motion was made with the recommendation that the applicants work with staff to address the concerns expressed by the neighboring property owners, and the board action is the resolution.
Okay. Well, I think I'd like to ask the board to have a few questions of staff to clarify. Is there anything that...
I think that's, Mr. Chair, I think that summarizes the meeting pretty well. Just to let everybody else know, I did have a meeting with the landowners. We discussed a lot of the same concerns. I think it's appropriate we listen to the public hearing at this point, and then we'll direct to see if staff has come up with any answers to some of these questions.
All right, because I did read in the report there were some things that, some stipulations you put in there. And I don't know, because I was confused about a few things in the report. When I saw the photograph of a road access coming off of, I think, County Road 27 or 304, and then, but it was prior, well, it's listed in writing that it's coming off of
the Township Road.
223 Township Road. And is that, so your recommendation is it's supposed to come off the other side? I wasn't sure.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Commissioners, the applicant's initial request was that the project be accessed off of the County State Aid Highway 27. After we worked with the Highway Department and spoke with the township, they wanted it to come off of the township road, but the initial request was to come off of the county road, which is why we left that in the packet. But based on comments from the Highway Department, we added the condition, or proposed the condition, that it come off of the township road. But that's why there's the difference. It was just what they requested versus what our recommendation was.
Okay, so the recommendation still is in the report then? It's
to come off the township road.
Come off the township, 223?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that helps. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't an error. Sometimes there's an error in something like that. Okay, that helps clarify that portion for me. At this time, we'll open the public comment portion of the hearing. If you would like to make a comment regarding PC 16-18, applicant for this is FastSun 14, LLC. Please come to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Again, we request that you please limit your comments to about 3 minutes. Thank you very much. And tell me where your name and where you're from.
Certainly. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Chuck Beisner. I'm here on behalf of the applicant.
Good morning, Chuck.
I'm going to go through a couple of quick things and try to clarify some issues if I may. Initially, this project was approved on the northwest corner of that quarter section. We applied with Excel. They accepted the location. We came through zoning, got approved by this commission, and in Excel's more diligence, they found that the service line is about 350 feet off the property line into the middle of the field, hence the reason for the application to move the site. People have moved the service lines in the past, however, they take about a year to do. They cost about $100,000, and it's not a guaranteed move because you have to get both Excel and the neighboring utility to agree to do such, and then you have to go to a PUC meeting to get that approved. So it's not as easy as one would think to get done. Second thing I want to clarify, or third thing I think I want to clarify is the current site meets all the conditions of your ordinance. It was approved by Planning Commission, approved by Township Board. We also want to be a good neighbor, so we had added that we'd put some screening on the western side of the project to help buffer the site to the neighbors to the west. I've also spoken with the Koppelmans, the property owners, And another possible option was to slide the site further east to as close right onto the service line as we can. That would add another 350 feet or so setback to the neighbors, and we would still be okay with doing either one of those, knowing that either one of those sites meets all the conditions of your ordinance, and we're just trying to be a good neighbor as best we can.
Yes. Anything else?
I think that's it for the moment. I think I'll listen to all the rest of the comments and have an opportunity to come back up.
So you're representing the
Applicant.
The applicant.
Yes.
Just a quick question I might have would be
Certainly.
the road issue. Just wondering what you...
The road issue, we're going to bring the access road from the north end of township. This site is 1 megawatt in size. The other is 5 megawatts in size. And we don't do business the way they have obviously did it and upset the neighbors. We stage off-site, bring one truck in at a time. We're not lining up the road, blocking the road, and so forth. We do have a staging area on-site, so where all our materials, we come right off the road, park on-site, and then offload from there.
Okay. That's helpful information.
Yeah, and another thing I think I noticed I'll quickly mention is I saw some pictures Mr. Stubbs passed around. Our site will have 3 utility poles, not 16, and we do not light any of those, so there'll be no lights on our site.
Okay, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Mr. Beisner?
Beisner.
Beiser?
Beisner.
Beisner.
Yes.
Thank you.
German.
Yeah, sounds German. Okay, so is there somebody else here that would like to make a public comment? Please introduce yourself, ask a question, or make a comment regarding PC 16-18. Please come to the podium. Yeah, address too.
Mike Genzel, 60374 224th Lane, Masson Lake. My house is northwest of this site. We have a huge solar system which isn't depicted in here, just to the west of this one. The landowners, Leo and I can't think of her name, Koppelman, they have more land on the other side capable of housing something this size. I don't know why they can't move it over there. It's really impeding on everybody's view around there. It's a residential, agricultural area. We're turning it into an industrial park. The other thing I don't see on there is anything to do with all the water it's going to create. There is no ponds in their drawing. Between every one of them solar rows will be gravel, I'm sure, which is impervious. They're taking up at least 8 acres. Anything over an acre is supposed to have some sort of a retention pond. Don't know how they're getting by with that. The other thing is, a screen isn't going to make it look natural. At very least, it needs to have some sort of shrubbery. Keep the country country. That's basically all I got.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you for the comments. We're still here with the public comment portion. Please come to the podium, state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Jeremy Munson. I'm the state representative for this area. I was brought into this rather recently. I was contacted by constituents just last week. Went out and met with the neighbors around this array. So I'm just learning the facts to this, but my understanding is that this project was proposed to be in the southeast corner, and that's where it received its zoning variance. That's the information I saw on the map, and when I spoke with Joe Tierney yesterday, he mentioned that they ran into an issue with the service territory in a previous project. Where their solar project was denied because it was about 10% out of the Excel territory. And since site selection is probably the first part of any solar project, to choose a spot and to go through the variance process, knowing that your solar array is outside the territory, I think is somewhat deceptive. And so it was concerning to me that the project and the maps that I was shown had shown the proposed site on that far southeastern corner of the parcel. I've been in real estate for 25 years, and I even buy and sell rural rental properties. And I know that location is important. And to have your farm site sandwiched between two industrial solar arrays does decrease your property value. And having a large solar installation behind your farm, behind your grove, isn't the best solution, but that's what they have today. And then to have a large solar, industrial solar installation directly across the street from you, no one's going to want to buy your farm site. And I know that Mr. Tierney has said he has a study saying that these large solar installations adjoining your property doesn't decrease the value at all. I find that really hard to believe. And I think that if there's a better location, we should be looking at that location. And I talked to Xcel Energy about doing a land swap. And yes, it can take a year to do when there's customers in that territory to determine their energy rates and to make sure that the swap is equal. But when you're swapping undeveloped land, it doesn't take that long, and the change can be swift. And it's concerning that solution was not, for as long as this project's been in place, in the works, it hasn't been even brought up with Xcel. And so that's a concern. I think we need to do what's right for the people of the district and to make sure that everybody is equally dissatisfied. We don't just allow a project to go forward to bring in, to this. I understand that property rights are important to both parties, and so the farmer needs to, if he wants to install solar panels, that's his right, but he can't do so to infringe on the rights of others. And so I think it's important we go through the process correctly and make sure that we look at the right location. So that's all I have, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative.
Okay, and then again, I'd like to mention this is a public hearing. Please state your name and your address.
Good morning. My name is John Henry Benzie. I live at 220604 Avenue, which is directly west of this proposed solar panel. I already have a huge solar panel behind my house, and contrary to what he said, there's not 16 poles out there, there's 17, plus NSP, or Xcel Energy now, put another new pole to tie into that. And that pole is right outside my dining room window, or poles, I should say. It has a light on it constantly, all night long, bright light, and a red light blinking constantly. And do I want another situation like that directly east of me? I don't think so. I'm very unhappy. And that setback on the planning says 124 feet from the center road. That's illegal. You guys know that. So that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that into consideration here. Okay. Is there another person that would like to come up and?
Darrell Hansel, we're just to the south of the proposed solar panel, 22083 604th Avenue. Just going to reinstate or bolster the fact that we all consider it's quite unsightly. It's just, we farm in that area. We all pass through that area every day. If we could work a little harder to put it across the road north of the existing site, which the landowner is the same landowner, and keep the good ag land, purely ag land. And if this board could meet out there and see it, I think you'd agree that there's no reason to have to go there. Put it, if he wants a solar system, put it on the other side of the road, just north of the other one. Thanks.
Thank you, Darrell.
Thanks, Darrell. Okay, so this is still PC 14-18, the solar array. Please come to the podium and state your name and your address.
My name is Lisa Grosskreutz, 222-98604 Avenue. And I'm also directly west of this location. I'd like to start with a quote from Kip Runder, aired on KEYC TV on June 20th. says we have a pretty robust ordinance in place for hog operations. Solar operations are new. I believe the setback for this array is 125 feet, and hog operations are up to 1,500 feet. And I was wondering why the makers of the solar ordinances didn't think that they needed to be as robust as the hog operation ordinances. The next information I have is from KTOE, written by Wendy Wild on February 17th, 2016. And I'm going to be quoting several of you. Aaron Stubbs. Drew Campbell. George Leary.
Right there.
Okay, this is from Aaron Stubbs, the Blue Earth County Land Use relating to residential solar construction. So in terms that ground-mounted or pole-mounted is not allowed, I think the point of that is to protect the visual scenery of that, to not block the next person's view. So I'm wondering why the residential residents of Blue Earth County's view is more important than the rural residents' view. In the same piece, George Leary, the land use administrator, says, pertaining to solar panels, we do not allow them within 300 feet of a stream or river. He says regulations protect the view and ruining the ground under it while they're being installed. And again, why is this view more important than my view? And the third quote is from the county administrator, Drew Campbell, who says he supports alternative energy, but wants to make sure that both commercial and residential installations don't have a negative impact on the scenic waterways and bluffs. And quote, in Minnesota, we really do have to recognize the aesthetic beauty we have, unquote. Again, is the only aesthetic beauty in Blue Earth County rivers and bluffs? I know for a fact many people also find aesthetic value in beautiful fields of corn and beans. Now I'd like to share some pictures. Directly out the window from our house to the west shows the solar array that's already back there.
This is what we see out our kitchen window.
Lyle, I thought you said you were going to put trees around that.
So I
guess they forgot.
Yeah.
So the other one, it's just a...
If anybody would like to take this home and hang it in their window to look at for the next 20 years, I'm offering it. Couples even. This is another picture of it. From a little further back.
Okay, so then this is what is proposed for what I'll see from my picture window for the next 20 to 30 years.
This is what they're going to build outside our front window. What's being proposed.
One is a view straight on, and the other one is from the back view, depending on exactly where this is positioned. This would be like the back view.
Any takers?
You just have another minute here. We got to wrap it up. So do you have something else you'd like to say about it?
There's also, I'd like to point out the nice chain fence with the 3 rows of barbed wire on top of it. It's very green looking. So, being said, I'm not asking that these solar arrays not be built On the contrary, we need to explore greener energy options, but I'm asking that it is far away from my house and neighbors' houses, suggesting to the north of where they are. And here's some pictures standing at the solar panels that are already there, looking north, and there is ample room back there to put them. And to emphasize that the location that it is full of imperious materials under the solar panels, and will we there'll be excess water runoff. It is injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property owners, and will impede on the future possible plans of Ed Goebel. By putting this here at the corner, you take away ability for residents near the road, causing higher expenses and taking good farmland. Per the staff of Julie Rusin and Jerry Munson, legislation is in the draft form to not allow this kind of encroachment to be considered in the future. So I urge you not to approve this proposal as it is now. You know there is a better solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else has a public comment they'd like to come to the podium?
My name is Ed Goebel, 19887 Monks Avenue, Mankato. I have property to the north, 35 acres, and another 40 acres to the northwest there with a building right, and there's some woods in there. So if I ever did want to put a house there, this is not going to make it any easier, or it's going to hurt the property values. And another thing, maybe everybody should look at some of this prime land that's getting taken out of production for some of this, where I think there's a poorer land, the solar panels will work just as well on that good farmland. And then to cut this up too, it just, I don't know, where's it end, I guess, so all right, thank you.
Ed, I got a question.
Didn't you say that you were offered this here, but you didn't care for it because it was taken your prime farmland and so it was a change?
Right, I was offered, 3 times or better what land rent went for, so, and I declined it because I felt it wasn't right. So I gave up a lot of money because of our principle that I don't feel it's right to do it on this good land, so.
Where's your land again now? Is it to the north, you said?
To the north, I have 35 acres, and then to the northwest or kitty corner, there's
right over here.
Yeah, just kitty corner, the other one.
Northwest.
Northwest is where the building site, where I have a building right.
Oh, right there, that long strip?
No.
Oh, no.
All
right.
Both those 48.
Oh.
It's the trail goes through part of it, right there.
Oh.
And then I have some woods there where, if I decide to, put a house in there or whatever, I don't know if I will, but it's just gonna hurt the value of it, I guess, down the road. So.
All right, thank you so much, Ed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else that would like to make a comment regarding this?
Thanks for the opportunity again. Just hearing some of the comments, wanted to see if I could respond to a few of them for you. As far as the concern about the water, our contractor goes through the SWIP process, make sure that's all approved by the county, so we'll make sure that if any retention ponds are required, they'll be built, they'll make sure the drainage is fine, and so their post-construction won't be any water type issues. Underneath the entire garden, we plant native grasses. So as far as runoff goes, we find that there's less runoff after we're done with construction than is a row crop like it currently is.
And just for the fun of it, not fun of it, but for clarification, you're Chuck Beisner.
Beisner, correct.
Beisner.
Correct.
Thank you.
As far as the issues that the neighbors had with the previous solar garden that was built, the 5 megawatt, that's not ours. So as part of the industry, we apologize for what happened there, but We were not involved with that at all. We're looking at this specific site with this specific application. What I would like to do is, congratulate the board and the staff on the work that was done to put what I thought is a pretty good zoning ordinance together for these. We followed those recommendations, found a site that works for us, works for a property owner, and met all of your conditions and are, looking for approval on this. And again, we would slide the site further east if that would, add another 350 feet or so of separation with the neighboring properties.
What about plantings? Did you guys talk about plantings at all or anything?
At the Planning Commission, we had two options that we were looking at. One would be this existing location with plantings, and the other would be sliding it 350 feet or so to the east without plantings. The reason without is if you farm, you don't want to plant a bunch of trees in the middle of a field. The solar garden will go away at 25-year point, and now you've got a row of trees there that will be torn up. And then trying to get all the roots out so you can bring it back to farmland.
So that's not on the table as far as you guys are
Correct.
concerned? It's not for bushes or anything?
We were looking at Cardinal Dogwood at the time, but again, on the west side of it, if it stayed in the northwest corner.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Chuck.
Certainly.
All right. Well, we got anybody else here? What do you guys want to do?
Make sure everybody else is already talked.
First, we have to make sure everybody else, excuse me 1 second, make sure everybody else has had a chance to come up.
I'm going to come up, yes, I want to go last.
I just want to ask Mr. Beisner, if he lived where Lyle or Jack or any of us, if that was his home and the landowner and they could, the same landowner, just adjacent to the existing site, would they possibly try a little harder to put it north of the existing site on that parcel, which to us dum-dums looks perfectly acceptable? So why? I mean, if they had to live there, maybe they'd try harder to shift it over to the other parcel. This is just unsightly for all of us. We don't want it. Just put it back where the other one, where it won't bother anyone.
And you were Daryl?
Daryl Gensel.
Yeah, Daryl Gensel. Thank you, Daryl.
Just so there's no confusion, I'm still John Henry Benzie. And one of the things I neglected to say earlier, I have the solar panels to the west of me. I have the poles to the south of me. Now you want to put solar panels to the east of me, so I'm in a total cocoon. I have, my radio reception has gone way down the tubes ever since those panels come in, and at night you hear a constant buzzing from those poles and their transformers setting out just south of me. I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Hi, Jeremy Munson, State Representative. I just wanted to comment on one more thing. I know that we've been talking about the possibility of relocating it to the north of the existing array. And as I've been thinking about this, I don't think that that is a viable option because the laws in Minnesota actually prevent a solar array larger than 5 megawatts. They're supposed to be in like 1 megawatt solar arrays, and then developers immediately started clustering solar arrays together, these 1 megawatt arrays together to be larger, and they wanted to do 10 and 20 megawatt solar arrays of clusters of one, which is how you fall under that enormous government subsidy to get your project viable. So if there's already a 5 megawatt solar array, they can't put that with the other one because that would be clustering. In other words, the Minnesota Appeals Court reaffirmed this, that you can't cluster more than 5 megawatts of solar arrays together. Now, whether this is clustering them, putting them directly across the street, that's kind of up to you guys to decide. But there may be, that may bring about additional litigation because you have clustering of more than 5 megawatts in one area.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yeah.
Jeremy. Is that, I don't know how that law is written, but is that written per company? I mean, because we have two separate companies here.
No,
So you understand what I'm talking, I mean,
Yep, I do
you're
that.
talking about clustering, but are you talking about clustering with the same company doing it, you know, or two different companies? There's a definite difference, and I'd like to see what the law reads, you know.
Sure, Mr. Commissioner, members. The law requires that, and then, I'm not a lawyer, but it requires that each megawatt be set up under a separate company, separate LLC. So you have,
Which it is.
yeah, which it is. So any additional, so you have a 5-acre solar array, they're technically 5 separate 1 megawatt, arrays under 5 separate companies. They just kind of tie into the same grid. But if we have now a 6th, and I'm sure that they'll come up and speak to it, but there may be question whether this is clustering, more than 5.
Okay.
But,
Okay, state your name and your address, please.
Lyle Grosskreitz, 22298 604 Avenue, Eagle Lake. This proposed site is going to be exactly east of me, less than 250 feet out my front window. Apologize right now, probably go over the 3 minutes, but I think I've earned that right if I got to look at this for 20, 30 years. First, I'd like to state that this project was started by Weber Community Planning. It was sold out to Sun Venture Energies, and now it's Sun 14 something. That's the same way this other one behind us started out, changing names, changing hands, bankrupting, a lot of initial contract stuff that we talked about, trees, etc., screening, whatever. That all got dropped by the wayside as we went from one group to the next. And I really question at this point how much has been lost through what's happened already, being this is the 3rd renamed venture. I'd like to make a note of that. I'd like to mention why, you had photos up earlier, of why the footprint, you guys would like to tear one of these off and pass them around. When it was first proposed, which would be in the southeast corner, the footprint is so small, and now we're looking at up to 10 acres maybe with the poles and fencing and outline and whatever. Why are the pictures so misleading, and why weren't the pictures of the proposed, the one we have there now, part of the voting process? You guys had a full view of what was really happening at the time, and maybe this wouldn't have got shoved through so fast. It seems to me now like it's just getting moved down the road from the southeast to the northwest, and now to the north, and now to the northwest, as a way to sidestep maybe some legality things that have come along the way. And as long as we can get it out of that zone, that all these problems are just going to go away, it's just the best for the county. This was proposed in 8/17 in 2 separate parcels, one of 10 acres and one of 7 acres. I'd like to know really which plan we're building under now, and when the second plan is going to be ending up in our backyard. I'd like these questions answered, and if they can't be answered, this needs to get tabled until this is worked out. Or the easiest way out is to put it north, back out of the way where everybody seems to be happy in the neighborhood with it. Kind of interested in who didn't do their job to find out about that imaginary boundary across the field that's caused all this disturbance, and why it was presented by the construction company in such a way. It seems like it was a little bit of, I don't know, tomfoolery, or however you want to put it, to sneak it by you guys, and then after that, we'll do a bait and switch and get it shoved in someone's front yard, and it just seems like that's where we've went to this point. I was told a special variance could maybe be looked into and granted, and I was told by the, I believe I talked to Mr. Stubbs, and we had a meeting with Kip and Mr. Stuenberg and Mr. Meyer about a week or so ago, and they said people were looking into it, but they haven't heard back yet. Yesterday I talked to a Benco representative by the name of John Hutchinson. That was yesterday morning, and he represents these lines in our area. He said my phone call was the first he's heard. So I question how hard our board and our environmental people have actually been looking into this. As mentioned before, the bright lights all night, the flashing red lights in Jack's yard, visible from my property as well. Not even supposed to have lights according to our ordinances on that type of stuff in the country. Glare hasn't been mentioned, but if anybody has taken the time to drive down our road, specifically now when the sun is shining at 6:30 to 7 o'clock at night, there's a huge glare coming off those panels as you drive north. Now you're going to build one 124 feet off the road, so you're going to have an amplified problem in the morning with drivers going north.
Okay, now Lyle?
Yep.
I gotta cut you off, man.
I'm sorry. I've got to look at this for 20, 30 years.
I know. We're not going to necessarily, we don't know where we're going with this now, so it's not necessarily approved, you know what I'm saying? So we're talking about it.
I'm done.
Yeah. Technically you've gone 4 or 5 minutes already.
I'm going to go 3 minutes. My name is Cindy Gensel, 22083 604th Avenue, Eagle Lake. I'm south of this proposed, it's connected right to our family farm where we live. I don't think it's right that Lyle is cut off at 3 minutes.
It was almost 5. It was almost 5 minutes.
But I'm going to come in here so he has another chance to come up. I'm basically breaking up his 3 minutes. I just don't know. I think all of you are good people. If you had to look at this monstrosity, you would not want to live there. It's not we're rural people, and many people want to go to the rural areas, and no one will want to go by our area. I really, please table this, drive by our area, see what we have to live with. And I don't think any one of you would want to live with it.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Cindy.
Lyle Grosskreutz again. I guess if I can't talk, I'd just like to give a closing statement.
Okay, thanks, Lyle.
You're just going to shut me down. Now refer back to something my wife said, and you've heard from other people. I was here a couple of weeks ago at a meeting, and we talked about the beauty of our county, our bluffs, our parks, our rivers, our streams, financial reports. You guys were all here. I was the odd duck in the room. I guess with what my wife quoted a few of you, I would just like to say, after being at that meeting and listening to all that, why is the view that we see out our windows worth any less of a value of what you see in the investment of your parks and your bluffs and everything that I had to listen to that day? I want to know why I'm not even on the same page in the same book.
Okay.
Thank you, Lyle.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lyle.
Thanks.
All right. So that's why we have these public hearings, is so we can hear from folks and hear their concerns. They also create ideas for helping to solve issues and problems. And so I thank everybody that shared their comments today. We're going to bring this back to the board.
For a second.
Oh, have you spoke yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I'm John Schneider. I live at 22048 604th Avenue. I am just south of and neighbors to the original solar plant.
The original solar plant? Yeah.
I have a 40-acre farm there that I'm pretty proud of, and I'm telling you, if this goes in there, the property values, I don't know, I would never have bought that farm if this was sitting there. And I have nothing against the Koppelmans. They're great people. But I just don't think this is the right place to put this. I guess that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you everybody for all your comments again and ideas that have been brought forward today regarding PC 16-18 solar array. And I'd like to bring it back to the board for discussion and for any actions that need to occur. So we're closing the public comment portion of the meeting right now.
Well, Mr. Chair, I'd like to start out with just a couple comments, and again, I'd like to reiterate the Chair's comments about the conversations we've had with the citizens of the area. Commissioner was at one meeting and the administrator, and we had a great conversation. I just want to talk a little bit more about the Planning and Zoning Board meeting that we had. It did pass 7-0, but there was some very legitimate concerns that the staff has been working on, and the Planning and Zoning Board was kind of torn. We understand the property rights. People need to do what they want with their properties to a certain extent. We spent quite a bit of time, talking about the on page 52 about it will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of the other properties in the immediate vicinity. We spent some time talking about that. So I just wanted to give that a little bit. It was passed, but it wasn't. They wanted us to do some more work between that meeting and this meeting, because we didn't want to table it at that meeting because it would just push it down the road further. So I just want to let the board know that they've entrusted me and this board to, try to make the right decision, but they were basically passing it to us, and they aren't sure of the outcome. And I do want to talk about the staging, because there was a lot of comment about the staging. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I heard. There was a lot of comments about the staging. I understand. It sounds like Chuck and his team have got it staged off the township road, so I think we've got that issue dealt with. But I think we need to talk about some of these issues that did come up today. And the one thing before we move on, I would like our maps to reflect the text. So if that map has the driveway going to the county road, I want that off there before we approve it, because we've had issues with that before. Let's get that map updated, and maybe something else, because it is confusing. Commissioner, you've seen that when you looked at it. It looked like it was coming onto our county road. The text says it's not going to, but pictures carry a lot of weight. So I'd like to see that removed before, well, it will be removed. But so I think we should probably go through some of these questions, Mr. Chair, or I'll let other board members make some comments, but then I know I've got a couple. If you want me to go ahead, I think we should try to go through some of these questions. I know that one of the things it sounds like, that I've heard so far anyway, it sounds like the staging thing will not be as much of a concern. It's a much smaller unit. This company runs it differently. I think that we'll find that out. But I am concerned about the distance from the properties. I've been one that's always been a proponent of any of the industry, regardless if it's hog barns, anything that's going on out in the rural area, that the residents, if you watched any of my last meetings, that I'm usually very concerned about setbacks and what's appropriate for setbacks. So I really do believe it needs to have, if this was to go in that section of land even, it would have to be set back farther from the road. This is my opinion. I got some answers on the driveway because I wasn't sure about the driveway. From Chuck's testimony, it sounds like they're not going to have a series of poles with lights on them or anything over there. So that's gone. There's no lights on poles.
Yeah, that's what they told me. We built the original one. It's all going to be in the back.
We can write it right in there. Okay. We'll put it just a minute, just a second.
You didn't even talk about a whole new substation built.
I do feel badly, though, that even hearing about this other larger array that's back there, that there isn't some sort of a plantings or something to make it a little more user-friendly and beautiful. That there's so many different kinds of trees and things that don't get too large. There's very ornamental and decorative trees. There's things that could really make that look a lot different than it does today. I mean, just a comment.
Years from now.
Yeah, still, it's just a comment that I have, that I think that when we look at these next to homeowners, that there should be some consideration for having natural, well, just like when you put up a windbreak on the north side of your farm place. You got evergreen trees and you got some other trees. You got kind of a series of things, plantings, and they're beautiful on a lot of farm places out there. I spent at least 4 hours myself as a commissioner looking at this project. Some of it was confusing, but I also used the beacon system to try to figure out who owns what land around there and look at what's happening. And I made a lot of notes, but a lot of the questions have been answered for me. And I just know that most of the properties in that area are set back anywhere from 250 to 450 feet. And there is an ordinance, or in our ordinances, I'm not sure if it directly relates to this kind of a setup or not, but it's talks about looking at the township setbacks on the roads to see if they're similar, that kind of thing. So I'd like to hear from the rest of the board a little bit though on this.
Okay. I guess if I may, Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I want to appreciate all of you that have come here to speak today. I too live in a rural area. I understand what you're saying about what you want to see when you look out your windows. And I just want to let you know that your message has been heard, and I certainly appreciate that you spoke up about it, and I do understand what you're saying.
Mark, you got anything?
That's basically what I observed what the people have been saying, and of course staff and other commissioners, I'd have the same. I appreciate the comments and understand they're well meant, and it would mean a lot, and it would make a difference if I was in that same situation. So, and I appreciate it much.
Mr. Strumberg, you had a few things you wanted to share with me.
Oh, I spent time. I went to the meeting out in Eagle Lake. Absolutely understand. What most people don't understand, I grew up in a farm north of Breckenridge, Minnesota. And I do understand. But every farmer here also understands the thing, and gets upset when the county board tells them they can't build something because it's my property. So we're sitting here kind of pulled to the rights of the property owner having what he wants on his property and the rights of the neighbors as to what they have to look at. I understand both sides, and personally feel we need to have more time to look at this. And since it's not my district, I'm going to let Mr. Brunder make any motions, but I think we need to spend time to have our staff and people take a longer look at what's proper. I also would not like to look out my front window at this.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I think we need to keep the discussion open. I was thinking maybe some of the stuff would be dealt with today, to be honest with you. I thought we weren't going to hear anything new today, but we did. The representative brought up some good points about this line, and so did Chuck, saying it's hard. The representative said it's not. So I think we got to sort through that part about moving the line. Most of the other stuff was already talked about, moving it west and south, and then the screening, trees around the sites, the poles. I think we've kind of leveled that a little bit, but I certainly would think we need to have a condition in there. So this stuff is written down. So if we do push it back, we do have trees, I want to let as part of the condition of the conditional use permits. I'm not sure what right we have as that, but these are just some things we have to struggle with. And I think we all have to worry about the use of the property for both the landowner and the people around it. So I am going to suggest I don't think there's even any other questions here that we could even try to deal with at this point. I mean, this isn't a fact-finding mission. This is a county board meeting, and to try to muddle through these questions, I think would just be inappropriate, and I don't think it would be productive to try to do this at the board level. So I'm going to move to table this until the next board meeting, and I'm going to direct staff to work through these questions and try to get more infinitive answers, make these calls, clarify some of this stuff. And personally, as a board member, I'm just not interested in seeing, at least if we move it to the east and put the plantings in. There was some discussion at the board level, at the county planning and zoning board level, about one or the other, but I think there was consensus that why can't we at least have both on the table? And I know Chuck will probably have some challenges with that, and I'm not going to let him respond at this point, but I think we'll let him work with the staff, but that's just my personal opinion. I just think we need to have a hybrid of the two. So with that, like I said, I've already moved to table this and direct staff to work on these questions and comments and bring it back to the next board meeting.
Second. And I'll second.
Yes, I don't even know if we need a second.
No, you don't need a second. Carry on, Chair.
So we've got a motion for a table until the next board meeting, which is what date?
I believe it's July 10th.
Correct.
July 10th. So that staff will have a chance to examine these things, talk with the project, the developer, and that sort of thing, and see what needs to be done. Okay, so it's off the table.
Hold on one second. No more comments.
No more comments. I'm really sorry.
Good question.
Yeah, good question.
Our meetings are at 9 a.m.
9 o'clock we start our board meeting, so.
Thank you.
Probably be shortly after there.
We do have one thing we have to talk about, and I think Aaron's raising his hand, so.
I think the county board may wish to direct staff to send a written notice to the applicant that we are exercising our one-time extension to the 60-day rule.
Okay.
So moved.
That's an option.
Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan.
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, the table does require a second and a vote by the majority.
Vote too?
Yeah, I thought
Second.
Who seconded?
I did, but that's okay.
Whoever Jesse has down. And, okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. So
I
this table.
would move that we send a notice of a 60-day extension.
Second. Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries.
All right.
And thank you, everybody. Again, take a break here right now. No. Well, we'll come back to the meeting after our break.
That was prepared.
A little cleanup action we have to do, technicality. We had a very good, robust discussion about, PC 16-18 regarding the solar array project. And we failed to actually make a motion so that we could table it. So just to help with that process, because we're not, I guess, sometimes as good at our job as we should be on these technical things, I'm sorry. I'd entertain a motion then for PC, and you have this recorded then too, Jesse, or, okay, PC 16-18.
I move to motion.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second for the, to open this up and look at it for approval, and
now,
sorry we had discussion earlier, but that's the way it went down.
And to clarify, Mr. Chair, the motion is to accept the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Okay, okay, thank you. Since we've already had quite a bit of information that's occurred and discussion, I know we all thought we tabled it, but we now formally it can be tabled. So
I would move to table it.
And I'll second that also.
Whoever was the first one. And then, okay. So Kip, motion for tabling it until such time as our next board meeting on July 10th. I'm going to say, what do you think? 9 o'clock, 20, something?
9 a.m. at the 9 a.m. meeting.
At the 9 a.m. meeting? Okay. And seconded by either, wherever Jesse's got down.
Vance.
It doesn't matter.
Or Will.
It doesn't.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Now, do we need to do another, we don't need to do anything in relation to this, just to make sure it's cleaned up as far as the 60-day extension?
Not that I'm aware of, Mr. Chair. I think we can move on with the agenda.
Okay. All righty. So, we've got Human Services, Phil Clausen here today, to our director, to talk about human service contracts and issues. Hi, Phil.
Hello.
Morning, Phil.
Chair and Commissioners. Just have one walk-in handout that I'm passing out here.
Oh, okay.
It's just part of discussion items later.
Nope. Thank you. There you go.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I do have one action item that I'm going to bring before you today. I do want to publicly thank Angie for covering me last month, and I believe there were some comments about preference during that time that, that got back through to me. So I just want you to go, and I was a little hurt by that, but I'm over it now. Yeah, I'm good. So.
Sometimes you're really hard to deal with.
That's exactly right. Yes. So I just have one action item. It is a little bit of a complex one because it includes several providers that do the same service for us regarding disability services. And it is a purchase of service agreement for semi-independent living services. We call that SILS as an acronym. The entities that are under this service are Smiles, Rem Heartland, Alley Services, Perry Myron Center, Prairie Community Services, Dignity for Life, and Habilitative Services, Inc., HSI. The services help consumers remain in their own homes, and they provide assistance with independent living skills. We have 20 consumers that are currently using these services. We do really promote the multiple provider approach so that consumers have a choice in which provider they use. The term of this contract is July 1st of 2018 through June 30th of 2019, and that is all the action items I have for you today.
I would move the action items.
Second. We've got a motion for approval and a second. Are there any comments or any discussion?
What does this mean then in terms of what we actually own?
Yeah, so it's a contract with Providers Commissioner that actually go into people's homes and help them function independently to kind of prevent, the higher level of care, facility-based care, nursing home. So these are kind of like personal care attendants that come in and help with daily living skills to maintain somebody in a home or to maintain them in a less restrictive environment.
Okay. Yep. And they're all different, aren't they, Phil?
They really are. I mean, each individual is different, and then, of course, the match to the staff you have also is very important to make sure you have a right fit for somebody that has some knowledge or expertise, because some people's disabilities have to do with their physical body or some of them in how they are able to use cognitive thinking, and so there's a lot of variance, absolutely.
Yeah, it's I guess these types of services are actually being discussed at many state and federal levels these last couple of years, especially this year.
Right.
Talking about, providing personal services for people, taking care of people, basically.
Yeah.
And so people who have CNA certification, they've got PCA certification, things like that. They go into homes, and there's special needs. A lot of these ones particularly deal with special needs.
Right.
It seems to me.
You're exactly.
They're not like with the elderly or anything like that. It's not
most of these are the disability services. So somebody that has kind of assessed disability. Correct.
And I don't know if you guys got it, but I got something in the mail too. My email. They wanted to do a survey, trying to get information about how can we maybe improve services, how can we pay for services, because typically these jobs are barely living wages, and so and very few have benefits attached even. I know that we've had some of a lot of these people that you list here, a lot of these organizations, you got the Harry Meyering Center. They've been in town for I don't know how many years. probably 40.
Right, at least.
In fact, my wife's the chair of the board there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And so I do hear a lot about, the various services and the needs that go on in our community. And this looks like a small thing to just do this one thing, but it's a huge, huge contract to allow state and federal dollars to help support people who, a lot of them can only work a couple hours a day if they can work.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
It seems like. And so it's kind of a big thing we got on the table here today, but. And I don't know, I'd like to just say one more thing if I could. I don't want to use it just for a soapbox, but I think we need to really look at how can we, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but professionalize these positions even greater than they are today, so that they can at least get to the level of, I'll bring an example to the table. All the jails in Minnesota, you can go there without having a certificate and get paid head and shoulders more than these people. As a jailer.
Sure.
And I think that we need to do something about this, and I don't know what the answer is, where we can get the money. Maybe it's a combination of local, state, and federal dollars, because right now we're not using very much local money for this. Anyway, so thank you very much for bringing this to the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. I do have 3 items to just kind of go over with you real briefly, informational and discussion items. The first slide in your packet is really just an outline of some of the crisis service structure that we have in our 10-county region. So you hear us talk about the South Central Community-Based Initiative, or SCCBI is the acronym. The 10 counties are listed in the subheading there. And then just walking down the graphic, you'll see we have a crisis line, mobile crisis residential services, and some urgent care psychiatry that we offer. Really, all of them, except maybe urgent care, is available 24/7. The first one, the crisis line, obviously enables people to call in, and then we can hook them up to that second piece, which is mobile crisis services and residential services if they're in a crisis. They have access to a treatment team, so people can be called at different levels if we need medical consult, and then follow up as well. So sometimes we can come up with a plan where somebody can stay in their home, but the next day we'll follow up with them and make sure everything's really stabilized and doing all right. And we have what we call rapid access psychiatry, and we actually even have a contract to try to help children with that, which is a really hard service to come by. So even in our region, it's just a real skeleton piece, but the state has tried to even put docs on call that have specialty in children's psychiatry. It's very, very hard to find. And so we have access points to that that we can help people maneuver through. And then the residential piece, you're well aware of the crisis center and the plans to expand that crisis center over by the Justice Center. And that's a real critical piece of what we do. Having a residential option, doing the assessments, the med monitoring, and obviously all that is to prevent hospitalizations. So the crisis services, along with our jail project, have really become our bread and butter, and we're really building a lot around these things. And Horizon's been a great provider to work with, primarily in our region.
Did you see on the news last night that Duluth, they're trying to get it through, I think it's a 60-bed.
Right.
Good sized facility for mental health.
Yeah, and you're probably aware in this session, Commissioners, that there was a large bonding bill really targeted at supportive housing, but then also crisis centers. And so communities are doing that. The one thing that's a little bit of a deterrent for us, because we did look at that just because we happen to be expanding ours, but I believe it has to be a municipality that owns a facility, and that was a deterrent for us, that we didn't really want to come to you all and say, how about instead of Horizon owning the buildings and running the programs, we'll take that over. That was a daunting proposition, but I know Olmsted, Duluth, as you suggest, and other hub communities like ours have that resource.
And the need is there.
That's
Because
for sure.
we're a little bit behind on some of this.
Yes. The last two items are really about the clubhouses. I have a data sheet here that I'll go over, and then we can just look at the flyer that I passed around. I know you all have been very gracious with your time about going to the open houses at the clubhouse, which we tend to do every year. It's very important to us, again, just like Crisis Services, we build community around our clubhouses. Just to make sure that the board understands that, we're one of many, that this has been a standard approach to supports and infrastructure around our region. You'll see the numbers in the upper left-hand corner. It says SAC BI data, so our whole initiative from 2013 through 17, and that first graphic bar graph shows active participants in the clubhouse per year, and so you see, almost 25,000 people that are touched by this in our 10-county area. And then you see our numbers between 4,000 and 5,000, which are duplicated numbers, how many people come on a day, and then you just add those all together. Our numbers overall, our membership has been quite stable. The graphic on the right side, average number of days open per year, we put a high value on trying to keep the clubhouse open. You guys have heard that we use consumers to actually do that on weekends and other times to really have them have full ownership in the operations in the Vine building. And so we have, almost open almost all year round, 353 days a year for us, and then the regional average is 283. Obviously not going to read all the pieces of the pie chart below, but that's the other significant graphic is the goal categories, and so each clubhouse can kind of identify what their priority is, either in general or year over year. And so a lot of these different things will become front burner items for a particular clubhouse, and you'll see that if you add them all up, there's kind of 92 different goals if you look throughout all the clubhouses in our region. And just looking at a little bit more of the marketing piece of this, of the identity part, you'll see the picture on the front of the flyer, and this is more of a generalized rather than our clubhouse, which you've seen some flyers on that as well, but this is just in general what we're trying to do region-wide. And because it's become regional, I think it's become a lot more of a standard practice, and because of that, it's become a culture issue that people really can count on and know it's going to be there for the long haul. And I know I've talked about recently that some of our funding, it comes and goes, and even crisis services, as Commissioner Campbell was talking about, they can be hard to sustain either because of what we pay or how the funding goes. And the hard thing is, how do you run a program when you're not sure if the funding is going to be there the next year? But this is an area that I think we've put into the water here, and I think it'll be around for the long haul because it has such an importance to the people that it serves most of all.
I see the quote there. You want to read that, Bill?
Yeah. It says, recreation's purpose is not to kill time, but to make time live, not to keep people occupied, but to keep them refreshed, not to offer an escape from life, but to provide a discovery of life. Joanne Decker. Yeah.
I used to know Joanne.
Did you?
Years ago.
Yeah.
She had a chronic illness that lasted quite a long time, and her husband was the primary caretaker for many years, taking care of her. But she was a professor at MSU, and she taught in the recreation department.
Oh, yeah, I knew this.
Yeah, Joanne. And I took classes from her back in the 80s, and one of them was, aging and recreation or something like that. So I had to do volunteer work in nursing homes when I was pretty young, and go to dances. She made me go to dances at nursing homes with people in their 80s. I remember dancing with two identical twins. They were in their 80s. They were down at the, it was back then. It was called Luther or something down at Sibley Park.
Oh yeah.
It was somehow Lutheran something.
Lutheran home.
Lutheran home.
Oh yeah. I know where Lutheran home.
That was called something else, I think.
Yeah.
So she was quite a character if you knew her. Real character. Yeah. She understood people, and very interesting person. So it's interesting they had that on the front of your brochure.
Yeah, isn't that cool that you know her? Yeah. Well, I know I was talking to county attorney about just how you get over the hill and start to look at life a little differently, but I know the millennials I think are doing a better job maybe in a certain way of saying we work to play, as opposed to a lot of us being so, invested in our jobs that it's hard to pull away. It really is sometimes. And so it's a mindset. And I think that point you're making and that Joanne made is a good one, that it's a big part of life. Shouldn't be minimized.
Yeah. Really something. Well, thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you all. I appreciate your time. Appreciate seeing you.
Great, Phil. Any other Phil? Phil? Okay. Thank you, Phil. Now we're on to the really big show here with Bob Meyer, our Administrative Services.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. First item is the county board minutes for June 12th.
Move to approve.
In stereo.
Second.
So we have a motion for approval and a second on the minutes. Is there any additions or changes? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the motion carries.
Next would be the bills for the weeks of June 7th and June 14th.
I'll move the bills.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Motion by Commissioner Purvis, seconded by Commissioner People for the bills, transactions. Is there anybody that has any questions or comments?
Well, there's two big ones on the very first page for AP Midwest.
That is part of our government center construction project. You'll see.
I figured that, but I thought we better bring it out in public.
So they're doing the concrete work.
$388,519 for each of them. I'm sure those are just starting payment.
Split between kind of the site development as well as the building, so that's why they're split that way.
I thought it was very interesting. I mean, they're exactly the same.
It's an internal distribution of the cost, so it's a single bill coming to us for 700 and some thousand,
really
and we split it into two object codes in our financial system.
Then there's one from Icon Constructors, PW Construction Projects for $661,000.
That's actually work on three bridges, the CASA 5, CASA 52, and the Pleasant Mountain Township bridges.
And a large one to Yulin Brothers.
Well, that's a big one.
$898,000.
That is work that's being done on CASA 14.
Okay. That's it for me, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Sternberg. Anybody else have a comment, question? Well, that helps because I had those two both listed, Vance. Right above that first one, though.
Scary when we think a lot alike.
Yeah, it happens once a year.
Just think of the rest of us.
So right above that one you asked though about, there's another one that has identical amounts of 18,541.15, and it's that AM Fence Company. Building acquisition.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
That also is part of the government center project. You're going to see a lot of these contractors where we're splitting the cost equally. So even though they're billing us in a single amount, because of how we're trying to account for things, we're splitting it evenly.
So is that for the fencing they've got there now?
The fencing around the perimeter of the project, yes.
And so then, when that's $36,000, what happens to that fencing when we're done?
It'll be removed.
And then who gets it?
I assume they take it back.
They probably reuse it, I would imagine.
So this is just labor putting it in, maybe?
It's labor and materials, but
maybe some material.
That was what was bid.
Oh, okay. I just wondered who owns the fence once we're done, because if we could use it somewhere in a park or something, it'd be wonderful.
I don't believe that was part of the bid.
I think they probably reuse it, I would imagine.
Yeah,
that's what they do.
They'd have other projects or something they were.
Okay. Because it's under acquisition, construction, site grounds, that sort of thing, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Then the Egan Company, same thing. You've got this building acquisition, construction, and a site grounds for $21,107.50.
again, part of the government center building project. They're one of the vendors that is working over there.
What do they do though? What's the?
They're largely the part of the electrical, so I believe they're putting in conduit and those.
Oh, okay, that's for conduit, okay. And then there's one Ford Motor Incorporated, building acquisition construction, $32,923 even.
They're a vendor or contractor that will be doing our windows in the new building.
Okay, Ford Metro is what I should say.
Yes.
Okay. Kraus Anderson Construction. We got another one there, but there's a penny difference on this one because it must have ended with a 3. So,
yes, they're the construction manager on the project.
And this is just a payment towards what they're doing because we owe them more than $60,000.
Yes, but these are monthly bills that what happens is the contractors submit their payment request to the construction manager. They review it with the architect. Then it's forwarded to the county for payment on a monthly basis. So you'll see this each month, this kind of activity each month.
And you're the due diligence man on this, Bob?
Myself and Tim Edwards review all that.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Well, thank you. I don't have any other questions. So, I guess we have to move for approval. We did this already, so all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries on the bills. Now, Human Resources.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 6 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. We do have one action item for the board today, and that is the renewal of the health insurance with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Minnesota effective July 1st through June 30th of 2019. You may recall as part of the open enrollment material that we informed staff that there would be a 3% increase in the premiums for our renewal of our health insurance.
I'll move approval.
Second.
A motion for approval and a second. Does anybody have any discussion or questions? I have one. What's the difference of this one than the one we've been using the last 2 years or whatever with Blue Cross Blue Shield? Is there something that should be noted, Bob, that you negotiated?
No, it's really the same 3 health plans at this point. We will be adding a high deductible health plan with an HSA in January of 2019, but as part of this renewal, it's still the same
basic
offerings that have been provided previously.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
Under informational items, then, you'll see we've initiated recruitment to refill a taxpayer services specialist. We also have received a resignation of a custody officer, and so have initiated recruitment to refill that position. We filled a couple of positions, one being the library on-call position, as well as a taxpayer services specialist position, so moving ahead there. We did have an opening in our corrections department that was then filled by a voluntary demotion of a clerical specialist that was in the public works department, so Amber will be moving over there, and we'll then initiate recruitment to fill that public works position.
So she's going over to
corrections.
Probation, okay.
Just a clarification on that, Bob, and I think I know what the answer is, but just how come the salary went up?
Yeah. She was still stepping in her current band, and so rather than kind of penalizing her at this stage, she will just have a lower earnings potential over time. So when we placed her on the new band and grade schedule, she did receive a small increase, but she will, over time, if she stays in that position.
Faster.
Yes.
Okay. So she helped with the parks too, so she will be a new person probably helping with the parks then.
Yes, we'll be recruiting for that position.
Okay.
And then there are 5 or 6, what do we have? 5 positions that have accepted the early retirement incentive program and have completed all the rescission periods, and so you'll see the list of individuals that will be leaving our organization, most of them towards the end of the year as part of that early retirement program.
Yeah, some longtime people.
Yes, some good institutional knowledge going out the door, but you know, I talked to a few of these folks and they're excited about the opportunity. So again, we've had a great response to that incentive program, and you know, the benefit obviously will be those salary and benefit savings that we'll see over time.
And now the deadline is, I mean, as far as applying and all that kind of thing has happened, as far as, so we know for sure who's retired, I mean, who's leaving under that program.
Right, there are just a few people that are still in the rescission period, but no more, because it did end at the end of May, so we won't have any additional names.
25?
I believe there were 25 total.
Okay. Well, interesting, huh? A few more than you thought were going to maybe take it, huh?
There were more. We had done some projections off of 15. I personally thought it might be closer to 20, and it was higher than that. So, very good response.
All right.
The next item, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, is in item number 7 in your packet, and it's a resolution authorizing the city manager to acquire property interest from Blue Earth County for the purposes of property disposition and sale. This has been an interesting one in that there's been a lot of back and forth over the last couple of days. I wasn't sure we were going to be bringing this one forward, but the story is that the city and county purchased land when the National Guard Armory was built. So there are 3 remaining undeveloped parcels south of the current National Guard Armory. And so the city has been approached by a developer to purchase a portion of those undeveloped lots for the development of a crisis center, which is partially what Director Clausen was mentioning. Our partnership with Horizon Homes for mental health treatment would benefit from this development. And so in discussions with the city manager, we actually looked at, rather than the 3 parcels that are shown in the packet, which run north and south, we talked about turning kind of the lay of the land east and west. And so the actual proposal is for the developer to buy kind of the, what would that be, the southwest corner of that undeveloped area for the development of this crisis center. They would also ask for a right of first refusal on the southeast portion of that undeveloped parcel, but right now the only development would occur in that southwest corner. There was some concern late this week that the National Guard had some plans to build a maintenance facility in the area, and this land initially had been programmed for that purpose. I heard from former Commissioner McLaughlin that through contacts he has with Representative Walz's office, that they were still planning to move ahead with that and planning to build it in fiscal year 2020. Late yesterday, though, it was discovered that that plan is that they will be building that facility in New Ulm, not in Mankato. And so we weren't sure we should move ahead with this particular resolution, thinking that that maintenance facility would certainly fit well in that area, but that opportunity seems to have passed. So here we are today, bringing it forward, still recommending approval to deed the land over to the city, because under their rules of property distribution through their EDA, they could work with that developer.
So how does that financially work?
We will still receive half of the proceeds from this sale, but they'll actually do the land transfer and collect the proceeds and then reimburse the county for our share of the initial purchase price and the excess purchase that they'll be receiving.
Okay.
And it's actually for less than half of the land that's available.
Right, it's really for about a quarter of that total undeveloped land at this point, with a right of first refusal for another quarter.
Yeah.
In my discussion with the city manager, we tried to preserve kind of the northern half of those undeveloped property for any future development at the National Guard Armory. That was our initial thinking before we got this word that maybe there was a chance still to get that maintenance facility, which ultimately didn't come to fruition.
Okay, that sounds good.
I'll move the...
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I'll move the...
Mark, there's a motion is moving this resolution to allow for the transaction on this property that we just talked about.
In light of new information. I'll second it.
Okay. And Commissioner Purvis seconds it. Well, it sounds good. I mean, we got the crisis center. I know it's not a lot bigger than what it's going to be, but it's bigger. It offers more bed space. What do we have now? 11 or 11 beds maybe?
10 or 12,
yeah.
But it's double bunking to achieve that number. And so, as I understand the proposal, it would be a 16-bed facility with individual rooms. So
very nice.
Much more functional in terms of that treatment.
Yep.
Did we discover that are they keeping their current facility?
It's my understanding that they are not. I believe they're currently leasing their space on Fowl Street, and it's my understanding this would replace that current location.
Very good, yeah. Very good.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, for sure.
Bob summarized what happened with that. I just wanted to tell Bob, thanks for checking into that, because I talked to Tom and this red flag came up and I gave it to Bob on Monday morning to deal with. So he was scrambling and things came together, but because I just didn't have time to deal with it yesterday, and he worked through it, and we had a plan in place that if it wasn't going to work. So
yeah.
I'm just glad it worked out, and I think it's important that we have something. Maybe that's some of that institutional knowledge that we talked about. I was part of this when Tom was lobbying so hard to get that. And so I thought I better make a call to Tom just to make sure that's off the table. And then he acted relatively fast and did a lot of work on it too to figure out where it was. So
I think he finally called me at 5:04 last night. So that's how recent these changes were occurring.
So I just think I think it's just good business we operate like that.
No, that's good. Yeah, very good.
I just want to note that.
Plus, this is going to be closer proximity, too, to our Yellow Line project, which maybe it can be utilized a little bit more for that, too.
That's clearly the benefit we saw was the location for a facility that we work closely with through the jail and human services.
Yeah, that would be plus. Very good. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And then we've got one other business item, Bob, that you handed out this morning.
Yes, Mr. Chair. There should be a letter in front of all of you regarding an aerial photography contract with Pictometry International Corp. We're scheduled to do another flyover the county in 2019, and so Mike Stahlbarker with the Taxpayer Services Department has been negotiating with the vendor. And the vendor at the end of May put out a discount for consideration by counties where we would get increased resolution on the flyover and a discounted rate if we chose that. We did end up doing some negotiation with that vendor, trying to figure out what was the best for the county. We thought we might be able to get an extension from the vendor in terms of the timing, because they said a decision and a signed contract needed to be in place by June 30th. And so I apologize for needing to walk this in today, but they were unwilling to extend that date until our next county board meeting. And so in order to achieve the first flight discount of nearly $25,000, we needed to bring it here to the board today. The big change is just the resolution of the pictures that are taken in this aerial photography. So we get a more finer resolution. And so we've negotiated that the contract would be for $90,699 for the first flight, which will occur in 2019. And then the second flight scheduled for 2022 would be $115,399. That compares to the last flight we did, which was $102,000. So you'll see the discount on the first year compared to what we paid previously. We do have the option to cancel that second flight, so we still have some options 3 years out. That gives us some comfort to take the better quality pictures now, see how they work for us, and decide if that's still in our best interest going forward. So we're requesting approval of the contract with a not to exceed amount as you see in the memo.
Move to approve. Second. Motion for approval from Commissioner Struenberg, second from Commissioner People. Anybody have any questions or comments about this? I know this is something that we started doing quite some time ago. The frequency may have stepped up a little bit from years ago, but is it every 2 years, Bob?
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years.
But it is used heavily in our tax area, but also extends out to really all county departments will tend to use those maps. So the resolution does help for some of the work that we do. We're just currently kind of evaluating how much value do we really get from that additional resolution.
And then these are sold also to Google and places like that, aren't they, or not?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. So
we're helping Big Brother, but it's...
Kind of are. I clicked on one of these for a place up in Duluth the other day. I was visiting, and the kids are out front, like, you know, they had perfect pictures of the kids looking at the guy driving by with the photograph taking a picture of the property. So it's funny.
Yeah, we don't do much of the ground level.
Yeah, this is all above.
This is all aerial.
Okay. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. And now we're on to our commissioner reports. Unless there was something else, Bob.
That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. You want to start, Will?
I will, yes.
I will.
On the 14th, I had the Extension Advisory Board meeting. Of course, they're getting ready for the fair now, getting a lot done there. They have a temporary person to replace Amanda for the 4-H services. She comes with lots of experience, so I think she'll be doing just fine. Then on the 19th, they had the transit meeting in St. Peter. Bob and I were at that. We got a rundown of how the transit system is working. It appears to be working quite well. I'm told that Lake Crystal is the biggest user of it, which comes as no surprise to me, because we had a group of folks over there that were very interested, very engaged in the development of it. So that's moving right along. Township officers on the 21st, good meeting there. Then on the 22nd at Brown County Evaluation Center, I had the annual review for our director there. He's doing a good job, has handled some difficult situations this year, so we gave him a good evaluation. Also later on that day, Kip and I were at Dream's retirement party. That was a nice send-off for her, and good to see that working out well for her. And then on the 23rd, I just kind of drove around and checked some of the spots that I was worried about for flooding and stuff like that in my district. Came upon the fact that the water was across the road down on the east side of the Dodd Ford Bridge down by Amboy, so we got that taken care of. also one of the insulated lines, I think it was a telephone line, that was on the electric poles was in the water. The current was flopping it, and so when I talked to Ryan, he says, well, we better call Benko on that. And they got there just in time to see a tree take that pole and take that wire and snap one of the poles. So they were pleased that they got notified on it. So water is certainly a big thing in everybody's district, I know. And then this morning we had the new employee meeting. Just wonderful to see that many new talented employees coming to the county, and that's my report.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Who's next? Kip?
Sure. After our last boarding, we had our MICA meeting, but we did not drive up there. We came down here and did a conference call because there were just too many things going on that day. So we actually had a long agenda, but the meeting was relatively short. And Keith was just kind of summarizing everything that went on. So we'll start it all over again in August. And then I was at a child development meeting and talked a little bit about how they select the kids that will be in our Head Start program. I had not done that before, so that was kind of an interesting process. A lot to learn and figure out how you get kids into a certain program and get them there, get them home, get them back. Very, very complicated, but I learned quite a bit, and it was very interesting to watch them select them, and they'll be having another meeting in a couple months to finalize it for next school year already. And then we had our MVAC meeting with our executive meeting, and just had to buy a couple new trucks for the home weatherization program and a couple other bookkeeping things. We did pick a winner for the R.J. Wolf Award, and it's Betty Orrin from here in Mankato. She helps a lot with the soups supper. They donate a lot of time and energy with the company she represents, so there'll be more on that, and that'll be given to her in July at the annual meeting. And then I had South Central Workforce. Got nothing new and earth-shattering going on there, but still keeping busy with all the things that they have to deal with. And then, as was mentioned earlier, we had a meeting at the City Hall in Eagle Lake talking about the conditional use permit that we just had a good discussion on with the solar farm. I'd like to extend a thank you to Commissioner Struenberger and Bob Meyer for coming along. And
What day was that?
That was Tuesday night last week. But I think when you have a group of concerned citizens, and you can bring some other elected officials and the administrator to the table, and it just shows that you're really interested in what you have to talk about, and we are. So it's not like we had a great discussion. We went out and visited the site, and I think that carried some weight for today. But again, it's all got to be gone through that process. And I was over to Waseca County yesterday morning for a ditch meeting. We have a joint ditch with Waseca County. We just have a very small piece of it. They're doing a redetermination of benefits, and then must be a fairly large project on it. But the viewer was there and just kind of went through the process of how they do their viewing, and he did a real nice job. It's not our viewers. It's a different group of viewers, and he had a nice presentation, about 45 minutes, and laid it out about the A, B, C, D lands, and it just was a good presentation, and he did a great job, and they'll be working forward on that. And then our new employees this morning, had a nice visit with them, and I think Amy does a great job, or not Amy, but Heidi and Amy both do a good job with that, and it's nice to meet them on an informal basis like that. That's my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks. Thank you. Kip? Commissioner Stuenberg?
Sure. Well, let's see, on the Wednesday, the 13th, I had a NACO Arts and Culture call-in. Spoke about a lot of different stuff that's going to go on at the annual convention, because I'm on their policy committee there. On the 14th, Thursday, I went to the MnDOT Highway 22 study. Found out what they're looking, and they're trying to get information how people want to have coming from south of Mankato all the way up to St. Peter. They're talking about trails. They're talking about possibility of different roundabouts and different things that they're looking at for Highway 22. Let's see. On Monday, I drove up to Duluth for a Minnesota Transportation Alliance meeting. We had with different members up there, and then I drove back. It was a long day.
Was it raining at all?
No.
Wasn't all good?
No, it was, in fact, it was nice there. Then, of course, on Tuesday, we had a meeting in Eagle Lake with Kip and the people in reference to the solar array. Let's see here. On Wednesday, I went to GMG for the free trade. Me and Commissioner People were there, a large group. There was probably about 30, 40 people in that room to listen about, free trade and whatever. It was a good meeting. Good meeting. That was a luncheon meeting. And then at 2 o'clock that afternoon, I had a NACO Transportation Steering Committee call in. And then at 4 o'clock, I had my Board of Directors meeting for the Children's Museum. And let's see, on Thursday, I drove down to Winnebago. We had our TDS meeting down at the Muir Library in Winnebago. So that was kind of interesting, seeing some of the the rural libraries and stuff. They have a very nice little library down there in Winnebago. Got back in time that I had a qualification shoot with the Mankato Police Department for my permit to carry. So I got back in time to do that. Then of course I went to Doreen's retirement too. I was one of the first people there. I had a ball game for my granddaughter that I had to get to afterwards, so I had to go there and leave real fast. And then this morning, I started out at 7 o'clock this morning at the Airport Commission. Some of the things, the EAA flight breakfast is going to be August 19th. I know, Mark, you volunteered for that many times. And they are getting an air show next year, and that's going to be June 13th through the 15th.
Oh, okay.
So they were concerned about County Road 12 and whether we're talking about construction. I said, I don't think we have to worry about it before the air show next year. Of course, then the new employee group after that, and then our board meeting. That's all I have.
Yeah, I don't know where we are at with that, which our 5-year or 10-year plan out on that road.
Yeah.
I know we've talked about it, but
yeah, I know. I've talked to Ryan about it.
Also,
so they're talking about a 3-lane, with a turning lane and stuff. So,
yeah, it's like a super tour, what do they call it?
But it's definitely a road that needs to be worked on, but it's all a process.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I've been to those breakfasts too. They're pretty good.
Oh, that EAA breakfast, it's amazing. They always have a band playing, and then you get to see all the experimental aircraft that they have out there, and of course all the pilots that are flying in for the breakfast. So you got airplanes coming from all over the place, and some are very, very interesting. So it's always good stuff.
Good.
Well, not too much to add. Yeah, with Kip, we did have a MICA conference call at the 13th, and we learned that people need to mute their button. There's a button, and that came out here. Sorry, a comment from the staff. Whatever. We had ours muted. Other people didn't.
Email wasn't for us.
Yeah, the note wasn't for us. And it did see the Friday the 15th, Partners for Affordable Housing. We had a planning session with the staff, or actually with the board and then the director. And actually Lou Dickmeyer did the facilitation. She's done that before, and that was very worthwhile. Gave us a little direction. The night you did have it was of course scheduled late, and you had your group with the group on our project this morning, the solar array surely, this is not really well, we were at the Egan Training Center for the Vikings.
Oh, sure.
We think they spend money on the stadium with tax dollars. At least this was their money, but it's not a shabby operation anymore. Let's put it that way. It was actually quite impressive. They have a huge building, you get planes in it, but you play football and you can now punt, and the ball can go 90, 100 feet up in the air. It doesn't hit anything like it did at Winter Park. So they actually have three football fields there, really. But anyway. Then we had, with Vance, we did see get good information about free trade and its effect on all our farmers, people, businesses in the state. And that was at the GMG Forum. And Jim, the commissioner from Nicollet County, was there. That last name will escape me at the moment. From Nicollet County.
Stenson?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Jim?
Yeah. And he was there, we were all together, so it was a big county experience. Then we had our township officers, we met on June 21st with them, and that was good. And yeah, we ended up with the upper new employees this morning, which are always fun to be at those.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
All right, thanks a lot. Mine is a little bit shorter than usual, but I was gone for a week on vacation from the 16th through the 23rd. So right in the middle here, since we had our last board meeting, and first time I've just been able to kind of chill out for 7 days. And 30 years ago, I bought this timeshare up at Breezy Point, so my wife and I were up there and just kind of a little fishing, a little R&R, swimming, that sort of thing. Our last board meeting, of course, we took some MCIT pictures, on June 12th. Remember that? And Bob, is that because we're getting recognized as being a safe county?
Yes, you'll recall that at the last AMC annual meeting in December, we did receive that award.
Yeah, so I guess they wanted some photographs of us. And then we had our board meeting. Of course, one of the things I always try to bring up something is a big thing or whatever is notable. We had our bond sale approval for our bonding that day. And we also went to the Lakes Bar and Grill, which I think we're doing again today, aren't we?
No, we're going to...
Where are we going?
Madison Lake, aren't we?
Madison Lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Lake.
Well, that's right. The Lakes was over in I'm getting confused here, Lake Crystal. That evening, I just want to mention our small Optimist Club had a Moondogs nonprofit booth that evening, and it was nice to see. Everybody seen the new updates and all the new property? They've redone that whole thing up there, for the field up there. Have you seen it? Anybody here?
I've driven by it.
Oh, okay. It's a lot nicer.
Yeah,
boy,
very
than
nice.
Something else. If you want to go to a ball game, it's pretty nice now there. They got the facility, the field, everything is just really nice. The seating, the building. So I encourage you to go there. We had a fun time that night. And then on June 13th, I just want to mention something. I couldn't make it down to Mapleton in time to pick up any pies, and I thought I was out of luck. And I got a call from Bonnie down there, reminding me that somebody had made gluten-free pies for me.
Wow.
So there was 2 of them, and I said, well, if they're frozen, I'll come down and get them. She said, yeah, I brought them home and froze them. So, and I brought the pecan one on our trip even, and I'm telling you, it was great. So this family, this woman down there, gosh, I wish I could remember her name. I met her daughter. She was in the library. And I picked up a chocolate walnut, double crust, and a pecan. These are gluten-free pies, you guys.
Right before lunch, you're saying.
Yeah.
Right before lunch.
So thank Bonnie for that down there. They had their town and country days down there before. Friday, I attended the MSSA Dignitaries Breakfast Roundtable, and this is the second one this year. I think Kip, you were at the other one, weren't you? And very good discussion. A lot of people representing a lot of things going on in our region. And Bonnie Stanton is good at helping get this set up. And Angie Youngerberg was there. She shared ideas and thoughts, and people from nonprofits, from governments, everything were there to talk about services and things that are going on in our human services. Friday, that same day, I attended, that's the 15th, the United Way Top Executive Leadership Luncheon. And I was mainly going there this time representing Vine. Vine had a table there, and I'm on their board. And so we listened to the keynote speaker, Ethan Casson. Do you know who that is? He is the CEO of the Timberwolves and the Lynx, which our neighbor Glenn Taylor owns. And Glenn, of course, was there. And this gentleman's talked about his background and his dreams of being basically in this position.
Yeah, I forgot to bring that up, because that was after our training.
You were there, Mark.
Yeah, that was after our thing with partners.
Yes.
We got
You were there with Partners for Affordable Housing. You had a table, didn't you?
Yeah, we got recognized.
Yeah, so Mark was there. We were the two commissioners I saw there anyway. And then on Monday, the 25th, yesterday, we had a TZD Safe Roads meeting up at the MnDOT building. And it was almost 2 hours long because it included a fatal and severe accident review, which we had also. We're also talking about the fact that, in October, the statewide TZD, safety conference will be right here in Mankato. Oh, wow. So I'd like to encourage all of us. Yeah, I think we should all register for that when it's open for registration.
Wonderful.
And if you can't attend all of it, just attend some of it. Be wonderful. So. I think that's about it. I know we're going to recess soon here for lunch over at the Landing in Madison Lake. I got that messed up before. Is there anything else for the good of the order, Bob, or the board?
I have nothing more, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so then we'll
recess.
Recess.
Second.
Okay,